Good afternoon. My name is Dylan Meek, and I am the mayor of the city of Waco. And we are here today to give an update on COVID-19 here in Waco in McLennan County. The reason we're holding this press conference is because as our hospitalization rates have risen, I've heard concerns in the community after recent occurrences like the suspension of elective procedures. I believe that it was an important moment for our community to factually know exactly where we are, to be able to make best decisions based on the information we have. And with that, we're going to get started today. And I'm going to start with our Mayor Pro Tem, Hector Sabito, who's going to give an announcement for the press conference that will be coming this afternoon or later today.
Thank you, Mayor. Para que nuestra audiencia que habla español entienda completamente lo que se dice durante esta conferencia de prensa, me gustaría invitarle a participar en la conferencia de prensa más tarde el día de hoy. Actualmente está produciendo una versión en español de esta conferencia de prensa y estará disponible para verla a las 4:30 de esta tarde. Puede ver la versión en español de esta conferencia de prensa en el canal de cable de la ciudad de Waco, en el canal 10 o a través de nuestra página de internet en wccc.tv. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Great to see you as always. I want to say that really briefly before we get started on our other panelists today, I want to just remind the folks in the community that per the governor's order, a governor executive order, the city is prohibited from regulating or mandating masks, shutdowns, or really anything else regarding COVID at this time. So the city is not in a position at any level to be able to exercise any regulation regarding COVID-19. But we are here working in conjunction with our hospitals, our public health district, and a couple of other really exciting panelists that will be talking to us all today about the status of things here in Waco and some other personal testimony as well. So with that, I wanted to start with an update from our hospitals. And if you would, we have Dr. Richard Haskett here with us today, representing Ascension Providence. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Haskett.
Thank you, Mayor Meek and fellow panelists. I'd like to begin by thanking the McLennan County Public Health District's team for continuing to provide comprehensive, coordinated leadership during this pandemic. Ascension Providence has worked closely with the Public Health Department and our other local health entities throughout the pandemic to continue to respond to our community needs. Ascension Providence continues to monitor the increase in COVID-19 cases in our community, and the vast majority of patients being treated for COVID-19 infection are unvaccinated or partially vaccinated. And these hospitalizations are putting a significant strain on our healthcare workers. This Delta variant is the most highly contagious strain we have seen, leading to increasing rates of severe illness and hospitalizations. And we are urging the community to get vaccinated, to not only protect yourself, but to help take the burden off of our frontline workers who have been fighting this virus for a year and a half. In addition to this upward trend of COVID-19 patients, we are also treating patients with a wide variety of upper respiratory disorders, specifically cases of RSV, which we don't typically see this time of year, and even influenza. Most importantly, we are confident our facilities have sufficient capacity and staff to continue caring for patients with this variety of medical needs at this time. In an effort to protect our patients, our physicians, our staff, and our community as the pandemic continues to spread, Ascension Providence has updated our visitor policy. Our priority is to reduce the transmission risk within our sites of care. So these changes include the following. Number one, surgery or procedure patient visitors are limited to 1 per patient. Point 2, visitors will be required to wait outside of the building once the patient is moved into surgery. The third point is that non-COVID-19 patient visitors are limited to 2 visitors per patient at any given time. The next point is that COVID-19 patient visitors are limited to 1 per patient at any given time. And if a patient without a disability is currently in the COVID ICU, visitors will not be allowed unless deemed necessary by nursing and/or physician staff. And of course, visitors will continue to be screened upon entry. I'd like to end by reiterating COVID-19 vaccination is the right thing to do for the well-being of our community. I've received the vaccine myself, and every eligible member of my family has been vaccinated as well. Again, we urge everybody to get vaccinated. It's the only way forward and the best way forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Haskett. And we will now move to Dr. Ahmad from Baylor Scott & White Hillcrest.
Thank you, Mayor Meek. We appreciate all the hard work and effort the city is putting together in the health department in getting us together in the time of need. Just like Dr. Haskett mentioned, our story is the same. We are part of the same community, serving the same people, and we are working together in fighting this disease. In the recent past, in last 3 to 4 weeks alone, our COVID numbers have gone up to 600% from where they were. They are occupying almost 25% of the acute beds that we have. We have full supplies of medications, state-of-art technology to deal with it. But as Dr. Haskett mentioned, the burden is still, the disease burden is prevalent in unvaccinated patients. As of now, only 2 to 3% of our admitted COVID patients are vaccinated. Only 2% are vaccinated. That is only 1 out of 50 who are admitted and in the hospital are fully vaccinated. That's a very minimal number. And they also have other risk factors which are making them sicker than what they are. We are limiting and trying to keep an eye on our emergent procedures. We do not have any limitation in the emergency and urgency procedures. We will continue doing that, but we are watching very carefully on our elective procedures, how we are managing them, and so that we can have the capacity controlled and we can continue accepting the transfers from other facilities which are needing help from us. From our point of view, as of now, we are dealing between 95 to 105% capacity as we were dealing in the month of January and February. We are still dealing, just like Dr. Haskett said, other disease processes, which is majority of our acute beds occupancy. We also have restricted our visitation policy. It's 1 visitation per patient who is not COVID or who is not suspected of COVID. In patients who have COVID, there are some exceptions made and they can be visited with those exceptions. We are encouraging our visitors to wear masks, and we would encourage them to, if they have any sickness and if they are not able to wear masks, to avoid visiting their loved ones in the hospital. Like Dr. Haskett, I am also vaccinated. My loved ones are vaccinated at home, anybody who's eligible. And I encourage all community members to consider vaccination, and we are here to help them. I'll be happy to entertain any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmad. I just want to thank right now Dr. Haskett and Dr. Ahmad, as well as Ascension Providence and Baylor Scott & White Hillcrest for their willingness to participate in today's conversation and to be great anchor institutions here in Waco. We are so thankful and so lucky to have great hospital leadership who provide such excellent care in our community. With that, we're going to turn it over to some community panelists, and we're going to start with someone who I've known for many years in my life, Reverend Danny Reeves, who I call Brother Danny. He was the pastor of the church I grew up in, and after I graduated high school, moved to First Baptist Corsicana, where he and his family live now, but recently has a really powerful story to tell. And after I heard that story, I reached out to him to see if he'd be willing to share it with our community, because I think there's value in his message. And he graciously and willingly accepted that invitation. And we're going to start with his story now. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brother Danny.
Mayor Meek, thank you so much for giving me the privilege to speak to you. I step before you today recovering from home. I'm in day 30 of my battle and journey with COVID-19, and it's a horrific story. There's not anything pleasant about it. And I step before you as a survivor. I never thought I would use that word, but I want to tell you just a little bit and then give you some encouragement so that you don't have to endure what I've endured. You see, back on July the 6th, I first had symptoms and body aches, all the things that you're told. I went to a local clinic. I was tested. I had COVID-19. The health department called and said, go ahead and go on home. You're healthy as can be, no underlying conditions, just hydrate and take vitamins. And I thought I would get over it. The truth is, I never thought I would get this. I'm disciplined in my health. I'm probably like a lot of people out there. I wasn't anti-vax by any stretch of the imagination. I encouraged a lot of people, especially senior adults, to move forward with the vaccination. But the truth was I was a bit cavalier. I just didn't think it would happen to me. And as I settled in, I had doctor friends come and make house calls. I received all the regimen of what you might expect to receive with antibiotic and steroid and albuterol treatments. But after 10 days into my quarantine, I realized that I was not winning the battle that COVID was. And so I desperately told my family, which I would never do, that I needed to go to the hospital. We chose Baylor Dallas because of connections that I had there, and I entered into a fight for my life. And when I tell you that, I don't say that lightly. In the dark, in my own bed, all alone in a COVID room, and I still get emotional about it. I fought for my life, and by God's grace and through just sheer determination and the good graces of extraordinary medical personnel, I sit before you today. 11 days in the hospital, 2 days and 2 nights in an ICU unit, suffering from severe sepsis as well as acute upper respiratory failure due to COVID-19. I saw the x-ray of my lungs because of pneumonia, and I knew I was in trouble. I fought to take breaths. I was sipping air off the top of my lungs, and just by the grace of God, as I say, and a lot of great respiratory therapy, I was able to get released. 10 days ago now, I've been here at my house. And but I'll tell you that COVID goes on. I have a full body rash in my upper body right now. I've lost a lot of hair. I've had my teeth loose in their sockets in my mouth. Most of that has begun to resolve itself, but I have begun to try to recover. My muscle weakness is extreme. I just want to tell you one thing, that I did not receive the vaccine because I was cavalier, and I was wrong. I didn't think it could touch me, but the truth is, if it can touch me, it can touch anybody. So I've asked God to use my story to encourage others, and I just simply want to say to anybody who's watching, it can impact you. It might impact you, and the best course of action for you is to take this vaccine. I know you have a choice. I know that you have the right to have something foreign put into your body, but I'm just asking you to learn from my story. You don't have to go through what I've gone through, and you can be protected from this. And I pray my story helps. I pray it encourages you. I pray you'll get the vaccine. God bless you, and thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you, Danny. That is very moving. And I just want to say how thankful we are that you are well and doing good. And I just can't thank you enough for coming to share your story. And I do believe God's going to use you. The next panelist we have today is Miss Karen Hicks, who is a leader in our Waco ISD school system. And she actually took time off of work today to participate in this press conference as well. And we are honored and thankful to have her. So with that, Ms. Hicks, we will turn it over to you.
Good afternoon. First, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mayor Meek. And I am very similar to Reverend Reeves. I, too, am a COVID-19 survivor. On December 25th, Christmas Day, I started manifesting symptoms. And I really didn't think anything, I didn't think it was going to be that bad. The vaccine hadn't come out. It looked like I was going to be one of those people who didn't have anything too much to going on. Then came the time when I began to do the incessant coughing. I was having shortness of breath to the point where I've described it as feeling like you're suffocating while you're trying to lay in bed. I spent 3 weeks in my house in isolation by myself. And it's the mind games that your fears play on you. And also, back then it was more difficult to obtain health care for me, although that I am fully insured. So because you'd go in and some people would say, oh, we can't treat you. What I want to do is I want to encourage those people who perhaps are like me. You have other health impairments that you could be diabetic or have high blood pressure, or you could be perfectly healthy. I want to encourage them to take the vaccine. I was one of the persons who said, I don't know, they got through with that vaccine awfully quick. It didn't look like they took the time to fully vet it. I'm not sure about this, but the good Lord willing, he really did deal with me when I was in isolation and quarantine during that time. I realized that this is a fight for your life, that it's a fight for you to be able to do the things that you really, really want to do and to live your life to the fullest as God intended. And so I want to encourage everyone to take the vaccine. I encourage everyone as an African American female, everyone in my community. I know that you have the choice, as Reverend Reeves was talking about. I was contemplating this, but it is so important for you to take care of your health first, not just for you, but for your children. I've heard that some of the patients are getting younger because they're not being vaccinated. And that scares me as a teacher, as a woman, as someone who has dealt with young people all of these years. I encourage everybody to go out and get this vaccine. I know that people are scared. All I can tell you is pray about it and go forward. I'm telling you, I spent many hours when I was in quarantine, realizing that I had to wait a significant amount of time to take the vaccine. So I want to encourage you and just tell you that for me, I took the Moderna, and the first injection, I had no problems whatsoever. The second time, the biggest thing I had was fatigue. And compared to the time I spent not being able to breathe, not being able to, being afraid to go to sleep on my back, or if I would fall on my back, it's the peace of mind that I have now. And the last thing, and I'm going to shut up, is just to tell you that about 2 weeks ago, I had an exposure again. It was such a relief because when I went back and got retested, I was negative. And that's my little testimony.
Ms. Hicks, that is so powerful. I just can't thank you enough for joining us today and saying that incredible story, that incredible testimony. We thank you. We thank you for joining us, and we thank you as you're gearing up to go back to school this year. Come on, one more thing.
I work at another school. It's year round, so we've been in school the whole time, and it's another level of peace when you're working in the community and in the public, to just know that you have a measure of protection. Even if the tragedy happens, you contract it again, your symptoms are not going to be as severe.
Great. That's an excellent point. So thank you for what you do for our community, and thank you for that incredible story. Next, we have Miss Isabel Lozano, who is a principal here in Waco ISD as well, and she is going to share her perspective and her thoughts. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Lozano.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Meek, for the opportunity to participate in this press conference. I would like to address my Hispanic community. I know some of you have been hesitant about being vaccinated. At first, I was hesitant too, but I chose to get vaccinated to protect the students, community members, and staff members that I work with on a daily basis. So this summer, something very hard happened. My husband lost two very close friends to COVID, and I have family members in Mexico that have been waiting patiently for the COVID vaccine. And we have the resources here in our city. And I want to address our community to please take advantage of it. Schedule your appointment today. Don't think about it. My husband and I, we went into CVS and got the Johnson & Johnson, and it was in and out. It was very easy. I had no side effects, and everybody said, Johnson, yeah, I had no side effects. And I'm so glad I took that leap of faith and got vaccinated. So thank you.
Thank you for being with us. And as you're getting geared up to go back to school this year too, we'll be thinking about you. Thanks for what you do for our kiddos at your school.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us. Next, we have Dr. Brad Holland, who is well known in our community for many regards and is very involved in our city, and I'm thankful for him. And with that, we will turn it to him.
Well, thank you, Mayor Meek, and to the many distinguished people that are on this panel, as well as my medical colleagues. It's a pleasure to be asked to speak a little bit today. My name is Brad Holland. I'm an otolaryngologist and head and neck surgeon who's practiced in Waco for almost 20 years. I'm serving currently as the Republican Party chairman for McLennan County, but I speak to you today as a physician and member of the McLennan County Medical Society and an elected leader of the Texas Medical Association. I'm a concerned physician today because, like every one of you, I am sick and tired of COVID and this pandemic, and am frustrated to the point I could spit that our numbers are once again rising. But I do want to talk with you about the vaccine and to tell you that I am vaccinated and every one of my family members and my kids are vaccinated. Now, like a good many of you, I don't like some of the changes this pandemic has forced upon our society. I don't like many of the actions that governments have had to take to deal with this public health crisis. And I agree very much with many of you who share the concerns of protecting our freedom and liberty as we protect our health now and in the future. But there's one thing about which I'm very certain, and that is that getting vaccinated against COVID-19 is a very good idea. It's a healthy idea, and it's one of the things that really could save your life or save someone in your family. Again, I share the concerns of those of you who are vehemently opposed to mandates and shutdowns and shelter-in-place orders and other coercions that seem foreign to us. We don't want to have to go back to that. But let me say this, to stay away from that, to avoid that, the best way to do so is to realize that vaccines do work against all strains of the virus, including the Delta variant. And really at this point, because it is here, you have two simple choices: to get vaccinated or to get infected. That's really what it's coming down to for each member of our community. Let me address the two arguments, though, that I hear in and out throughout my office and throughout the city about why people don't get vaccinated. The first is that the vaccine is experimental, not FDA approved. And yes, while the FDA approval is imminent and should come within the month for at least one of these vaccines, it is currently under emergency use authorization. But here's the thing. No health and safety concerns were cut in developing this vaccine. Only the bureaucratic red tape corners were cut to hasten the development of this vaccine to the public. And that's a key point. Those are the things we've always wanted to get rid of in the first place. The process of testing was rigorous and transparent, and I personally followed it very, very closely. You know, our own Congressman Bill Flores was actually a patient in phase 3 of the trial himself in the 2020. Now, let me also recall to you Operation Warp Speed. That was a victory, not of this administration, but of the previous administration, to hasten the development of the vaccine to an absolutely incredible time frame. And I predict it will be one of the biggest legacy pieces of the previous administration. The second argument I hear is that the government and our healthcare professionals are ignoring the impact of natural immunity. And nothing could be further from the truth. Yes, having COVID does give you more immunity over someone who has never had COVID, but there is excellent scientific proof that even if you've had COVID, you should get the vaccine. And as we've already heard today, the majority of those, vast majority, 97, 98% of those who are dealing with COVID or succumbing to COVID have not had the vaccine. It's protective by and large. Now, I thank God that we do live in a free nation, and the decision to get the vaccine is your decision. But please, I urge you, do get the vaccine so that we can end this wave, this pandemic, this perturbation of the great American life that this pandemic has caused, and so that we can all stop debating more government action to help slow its increase. I want to worship in my church. I want to travel far and wide with my family and friends. I want to eat in Waco restaurants. I want to lavish in the liberty that we are so fortunate to enjoy in this nation. And moreover, I want all of you hearing this to be able to do the same. But the simple truth is this: the more of you who choose to get vaccinated, the sooner life will finally return to normal once and for all of us. It truly is that simple. And so to those of you who are unvaccinated at this point, let me ask this of you. Won't you please talk to your doctor about your questions, your hesitancy, your concerns, consider taking the COVID-19 vaccine today. Do it for God, as we've heard from the pastor. Do it for our great country and for the great state of Texas, for McLennan County, and frankly, do it for your friends and neighbors. But please, getting vaccinated is truly the patriotic thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Holland, so much. I really can't thank you enough for that perspective and all that you bring to the table. So it's very meaningful that you would join us today. I'm so appreciative. Next, we'll move on to LaShawna Mallory Horn, who is the director of our Waco and McLennan County Public Health District, with some important information that she will be giving at this time.
Thank you, Mayor Meek, and to our healthcare leaders and all of our community panelists. The staff at the Health District have been hard at work continuing to try to monitor the spread of COVID-19. I'm going to share with you all some data on our current infection rates, some information about vaccination clinics, and how you can find out more about COVID-19. In the past 14 days, we've seen a 233% increase in the daily average of COVID-19 cases, and a 280% increase in the average number of people admitted into the hospital with the COVID-19 positive tests. The number of fatalities reported in the month of July were 125% higher than those reported in the month of June. Since April, 34% of deaths are among people aged 30 to 64, compared to 19% last year. We are seeing younger people become infected with COVID-19. Currently, there are 104 people hospitalized in McLennan County with COVID-19 infection, and the number of the hospitalizations among people younger than 20 years old has increased by 300%. The increase of COVID-19 cases in the community can be linked to the highly contagious Delta variant, and our best defense against this variant is to get vaccinated. All three products are highly effective against severe illness and death and hospitalization. All McLennan County community residents are encouraged to get a COVID-19 vaccine. We have vaccines available at the Health District located at 225 West Waco Drive, Monday through Friday from 8 o'clock a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. Walk-ins are welcome and no appointments are needed. The Health District continues to host vaccine clinics across the community and the county to make sure that every person in the community has access to vaccines. There are 13 different vaccine clinics scheduled for the next week in our community. We have begun to see a slight increase in the number of vaccines administered, but this number is not on pace with the number of COVID-19 infections. As of today, 42% of people in McLennan County over the age of 12 have been fully vaccinated. There are still 68% of us living in the county unvaccinated and at risk for becoming very sick, hospitalized, or even dying from COVID-19. You can find more information about COVID-19 for McLennan County at covidwaco.com. And you can also find information about COVID-19 on social media and on Instagram at the Waco Health District, and also on Facebook at the Waco McLennan County Public Health District. Thank you, Mayor Meek.
Thank you, Ms. Mallory Horn. We're so appreciative of you and your entire staff who've worked so hard the last many months and is continuing to do so. So thank you for all that you do for us. Last but not least, we have Dr. Jackson Griggs, who represents Waco Family Medicine, who we're so thankful for providing great sound advice to our whole community throughout the last year and a half. So with that, we'll turn it over to Dr. Griggs at this time.
Thank you, Mayor Meek. And just to reiterate your comments, I'm so grateful to have Ms. Mallory Horn here in our community, and her leadership of the Health District has been just outstanding. I've got a kind of a front row seat to watch her lead as a board member of the Health District, and then just working closely with organizations. And it's just, she's an exceptional leader. We're fortunate to have her. So, thank you, Mayor, in assembling the really rich testimonies of those who have experienced COVID-19 or have important perspectives to hear. I felt that infinitely more compelling than anything I can say. So thank you, particularly to those of you who have already spoken. And that kind of vulnerability is just beautiful and helps all of us to know what we're really contending with. So thank you. I want to share a brief word about the Delta variant. I want to reiterate the value of vaccination, and then I'll just conclude with a word on masking. So to start with the Delta variant, it has mutations on the spike protein that make it, in the words of the World Health Organization, the fastest and fittest variant to date. It has a shorter incubation time, so it doesn't take as long for an individual to go from being exposed to being contagious. And it's way more contagious than the original COVID-19 virus, because the viral load in our bodies, the amount of virus in the blood and respiratory tract, is astoundingly higher than the original strain. One study had it at 1,000 times higher, the viral burden, as compared with the original strain. In fact, someone with the original wild type strain was expected to only infect 1 to 3 other people, but someone with the Delta variant is more likely to infect 4 to 8 people. So this accelerates the speed at which we see exponential spread of the virus within our community. It doesn't take long to get to that steep part of the acceleration curve. It's faster, it's more contagious, but the Delta variant has also been associated with increases in disease severity and hospitalization. A Scottish analysis published in the journal Lancet found that people were about twice as likely to be hospitalized with Delta variant COVID as compared with the previous Alpha or UK variant. So it's faster, it's more dangerous, and as you've heard already today, it's affecting and is going to continue to affect primarily the unvaccinated population. So what's the good news? Why are we not all running for the hills? Well, analysis at both the state level and the national level show that COVID-19 hospitalization and especially deaths are uncommon events among the vaccinated population. When breakthrough cases of COVID happen among those who are vaccinated, people typically have only mild symptoms which last for a very short period of time. And we have data that suggests that those rare vaccinated folks who get COVID are contagious also for a much shorter period of time. So vaccination makes it far less likely to get infected, much less likely to be hospitalized, and it radically reduces fatalities from COVID. And it makes symptoms and the contagious period shorter. So this is all really good news for the vaccinated population. Vaccinations work and remain our key strategy for reaching the end of this pandemic and returning to normal life. If you happen to be on the fence, hopefully some of this information. Obviously, the stories today will be motivating, given the characteristics of the Delta variant. For those of you who are unvaccinated, I want you to hear me say clearly, as a community physician, as someone who spent my career caring for lives and health of those in our community, I want you to hear me say that the house is on fire. This thing spreads like crazy. Please get out of the house as quickly as possible and get your COVID vaccine. I would like just briefly to reinforce what Dr. Holland mentioned, the mythologies around the vaccine being experimental or not tested in animals, et cetera. It's just not true. Animal testing did occur, multiple phases of trials, including large phase 3 trials, all occurred before FDA emergency use agreements took place. I have a 16-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son who are the absolute most precious things in the world to me. There aren't words. I would never, ever do anything that put their health at risk. And I was insistent that they get vaccinated. So finally, just a quick comment around masking. Given the rabid nature of the Delta variant, guidance to mask in public, indoor settings, even among those who are vaccinated, it's not misguided. I have resumed my masking when I go to HEB and other places that are congested with a lot of people. I think it's wise. But given my vaccine, I'm certainly not living in fear. With the vaccine, we're not where we were in the spring and summer of 2020. I'm not locked in my home and avoiding contact with others. But I am being prudent about my mask wearing when I'm in enclosed spaces with lots of other people. Saying that, if you're older, have multiple chronic conditions, don't have a strong immune system, even if you're vaccinated, I like what one researcher called the belt and suspenders approach. Use the belt and suspenders approach for a while. Multiple tools to reduce the risk of acquiring the Delta variant. Wear a mask, specifically around, and especially around those who might not have their vaccine. Stay physically distanced. Only spend time with people in well-ventilated spaces, and avoid prolonged periods of time indoors, particularly where there are crowds. So that's all I have. I think right now is a really pivotal time for our community. I think that we're all, you've heard just a strong agreement across multiple areas today. Please get vaccinated. And thank you again to Mayor, colleagues, and the team here. It's been so important in the pandemic. I appreciate your shared leadership.
Thank you, Dr. Griggs. And that is going to bring our press conference to conclusion. Waco is and will continue to be a resilient city with an incredibly bright future, if for no other reason than our own community members. We're a city whose character is rooted in loving our neighbors, and I know that as we go forward, we're going to continue this. And in all things, we'll bear this in mind. My hope is that this powerful testimony from so many people in our community today, from medical professionals who've devoted their lives to understanding medicine and healthcare, to community leaders, to survivors themselves. My hope is that these fellow community members on this call have provided excellent information that people can think on, ponder, and learn from. I want to thank our participants, specifically and the city staff, for their very valuable time in preparing the distribution of this message today. Hearing from each of you was meaningful, and you brought very powerful perspectives. I want to thank our hospitals and also Charles Williams, the CEO of Baylor Scott & White Hillcrest, and Philip Patterson, the CEO of Ascension Providence, as well as our panelists, Dr. Haskett and Dr. Ahmad, thank you so much for your time and energy to transparently communicate with our community on what is happening in your hospitals. We're thankful for you. I want to thank Brother Danny. He might not live in Waco, but I failed to mention he's got a Baylor degree on his wall, and he comes down here as often as he can to catch a Baylor game. So he's at least partially a Wacoan, as well as Ms. Hicks, Ms. Lozano, and Dr. Holland. These community members, community leaders, thank you so much for this valuable and meaningful perspective that you were able to share to the folks here. Dr. Griggs, thank you for your voice on these issues. Our public health district, Ms. Mallory Horn, Ms. Alvey, Ms. Shaw, Ms. Crane, thank you guys so much for all you do for us every day. The rest of the public health team, and then our city staff, Bradley, Deidre, Esmeralda, Jennifer on legal. There's so many things going on still regarding COVID and in our city. And I want to just thank all the leaders on this call who've worked behind on this call, but also those behind the scenes who have worked hard and will continue to do so to serve our community. And that's why we're here. We're here to serve you. We look forward to continuing to do that in the days ahead. So thanks so much for everyone. We've got a bright future, and I think that you've been given some really powerful information for us to move forward with. So thank you for your time today.